So what's your take here, Rawlins?
Continuing our discussion on the Overland Campaign, the Army moved out from Wilderness and then had a 10-day engagement at Spotsylvania. The Army continued to Cold Harbor, which is where we are today, and this is some truly hallowed ground.
This is the last contact with Lee's army before we will pull away from here to the east and cross the James River, heading further south to get around at Petersburg at this point. As the crow flies, Richmond is not far from us to the west, and Lee has stubbornly dug in and defended the closer that we have sidled through the Virginia countryside, first from crossing the Rapidan River north of here. Every day's fight has been more stiffly resisted the closer to Richmond that we get, the further south and deeper into what he calls his country we would get. The Army's held up. We've been able to reinforce from time to time, not quite back over that 100,000 troop level that are what we started with, but now we're still within the 75 to 80,000 troop range, whereas Lee, starting out with nearly 80,000, is well below 60,000, hovering closer to 50 or 55 if we want to be gracious to the numbers he has. He's not able to reinforce and resupply, and I found out from prisoners captured, he's got 70-year-old men in the line and boys as young as 10. And I wrote home to Julia about that, and I said that Lee looks like he's robbing the cradle and the grave to fill his lines at this point. So we're very, very much wearing him down, which is the overall strategy. If I can't get his army broken in one fight, we're going to keep chipping away at it and get it broken down. So this fight here, a number of assaults, frustratingly unsuccessful due to lack of coordination in Meade's army. And it wears on me that I have to keep putting the men in. And the most dubious of all the claims made about this battle is the one of all the assaults that I have ever ordered in my course of fighting this war. The last one that we fight here is the one that I regret the most. And you can say, well, shouldn't you as a commander regret each one that causes great loss? And that's a good point. Significantly, you have to remember, Army commanders are braced for it. They know that we're going to lose men. We know that the assaults are going to cause great pain and difficulty, but we have to order them if that's what the Army is going to do to be successful. Here it matters because in a 15-minute action, 2,000 men were killed with no benefit to their death. There was nothing that could say justified why these men were lost as they were, and it was hard enough to take just to know that. This is important to remember because this is the last time that we order a frontal assault on an enemy position. And the significance of that is that the loss of life was unsustainable. It was an incredible 15-minute action where we lose 2,000 men, who I find are red-legged infantry, not trained as regular infantry, and thrown in by the other commanders who took advantage of them being naive to the rigors of combat that they were going to face.
And of course, those are the artillerymen.
Yes.
Superfluous artillerymen pulled off the heavy guns
around
the defenses of Washington.
Right.
So then they're given muskets, and since they have the red stripes on their pants, so they're the red-legged infantry.
And they're untrained and they're untested. So the other commanders, unwilling to put their forces into that sort of situation, then take advantage of these others who want to see the elephant improve their mettle and take advantage of that. And it's the most awful thing to consider, for no benefit being gained. If there were 2,000 dead in 15 minutes and the battle is won, the ground is secured, the loss of life, the sacrifice is justifiable. There's absolutely nothing that comes from it. So it changes our tactics from that point forward as far as how we're going to invest these Confederate positions.
And this doesn't help the position in Washington where you're being called the butcher, where Lincoln is taking heat for the relentlessness of the war.
Right, and to his credit, he endures that criticism on my behalf right through into the living quarters of the mansion, because his wife is fond to remind him of that butcher that's in Virginia. And it's June, it's 1864, so the election is a few months away, and this is not boding well for the overall strategic goal of giving the Army the win it needs so that it can propel Lincoln into a second term, so he can realize his goals to restore the country, ensure that the freed slaves are integrated into society, and carry on with making the country whole again.
And here again, although there's a tremendous loss of life, it is another one of those steps in grinding down the Confederacy.
Absolutely. Every action, you can liken it to boxers in a ring. The punch to Lee with the right, and he guards it and blocks it with his left, and he's doing a subsequent throw with his right that I'm blocking, and we begin circling to some degree, but at least sidling with each other. So it's this tick action that goes back and forth through the Virginia countryside, as you say, wilderness, Spotsylvania, the North Anna River, Yellow Tavern, and we get into this area at Cold Harbor, and the armies are just chomping at the bit to get at each other, and it's an awful 3-day fight here as well that neither one of us wants to admit defeat. Neither one of us wants to throw out a truce so that prisoners are rather wounded and can be brought off the field, where Lee finally succumbs and says, well, I'm not going to do it if you don't, and we're forced then to throw this truce together to get as many men off the field as we can. But from here, Lee is not sure where we're going. We're extremely close to Richmond. It's 12 miles as the crow flies. Men on that side of the field can hear the church bells in their capital. The fighting, as it gets deeper on us, as it gets closer to Richmond, he digs his heels in more, and he's more and more convinced that his capital is the goal. And as I said from the beginning, the idea of bringing him out to fight, and if I can't destroy the army wholesale, we're going to keep chipping away at it. So it is a matter of time, and I think he's beginning to understand that.
So it's part of the strategy, but this really is a tremendously emotional time for you and for a lot of the people on the staff.
Absolutely. We've all lost comrades, and that's a given. Whether it's across the lines we've lost someone, or we've lost someone dear that was a classmate. And for me personally, in the entirety of this Virginia campaign, I've lost one of my dearest classmates from West Point, Alexander Hayes. And he'd distinguished himself at Gettysburg. Significant was on the third day after Pickett and Longstreet were repulsed. He tied a Confederate flag to the back of his horse and dragged it through the mud at the angle, goading the Confederates to come back. Just the pluck he has, and that's pure Hayes, as I always remembered him. And when we lose him in the wilderness, I've asked repeatedly, I'm stunned. I can't accept that we lost him. So you couple that personal loss to this incredible, it's incredible waste of humanity that we've found ourselves in, and I'm not ashamed to admit, and the papers will play on it if they will, but I'm human, and I broke down and I cried over it.
So it's a tragic sight. It really is hallowed ground here.
Indeed, it always shall be.
It's inexplicable to be here. It's hard to explain the ground in between the two lines here.
And to go again with Lincoln, he knows the incredible loss. The times that I've been able to speak to him in between and offer a mea culpa, he comes to me, and I'm fond of saying, you've heard me say this to how many officers when I say to them that I think I rank you, when I want to prove a point about who's actually at the head of this. And Lincoln brings that on to me. He says, I've heard you tell plenty of soldiers that you rank them. Well, in this case, I rank you, Grant, and I want to let you know that I'm going to bear this burden. And it helps in some degree, but it's never going to take the pain off. But to know that the president is there to sustain us through that means the world to the Army.
And it's, circling back to that Butcher comment, it may be substantiated by such a terrible series of assaults here.
And that the results here are the things that embolden continuance of that. My wife reads the papers. My oldest boys read the paper. And they wonder why is father being labeled this, because they don't know me to be such a grotesque figure.
But we know that Cold Harbor teaches that terrible lesson.
Oh, in many ways, because this is the last time this army is going to make any kind of frontal assault in open ground, unsupported, with lack of coordination. Everything you could imagine, the perfect storm of errors and unsoldierly virtue leads to such a hard fight.
So moving on from here, where does the Army move next?
Well, we won't tell Lee this, but we're going to head east from here, find a suitable place near Harrison's Landing and cross the James and get below, because Petersburg is open. And much the way that Jackson was the key to capturing Vicksburg because of the rail junction and river junction that supplies Richmond, so too it'll be that we cut off Petersburg, we can starve Richmond out from below. And if Butler can get out of the Bermuda 100 plantation he's in right now, before we get down there's a chance to actually get possession of Petersburg. So it's a bit of a race, it's a bit of a challenge to be free of here.
It is a profound movement across the James, being able to do that without detection and being able to do that smoothly.
Right. The principal goal is as many as possible, as safely as possible, as fast as possible, with the hope we can do this without Lee catching on
And
to it.
with adequate logistics.
Obviously that. Well, we do enjoy control of the river
Yeah.
at that point. So like all these other riverine settings where we've had supplies waiting on us, the James is there. The James can provide. Not so much the river itself, but the means of using the river to get there. So we just have to get in position and use that then to steel ourselves.
So next we'll be looking at City Point and how the war is coordinated from that one junction.
Because until this point, command of the Army has been in the woods of Virginia, but that's going to become a firmly established headquarters with a base of operations within travel and communication to the capital as well. And it's nice because it gets us away from the capital and out of prying eyes and far enough. And we're right on top of the enemy, so we have control of that as well.
Then it's on to City Point.